National Research Platform meeting. So, once again, my name is Dan Voss. Now my cold has gotten worse, if you can hear. I don't know if I sound better or worse. Aaron has volunteered to take over if I lose my voice. Once again, I am a professional presenter for hire. I does food and lodging. Anyone else wants to pay for food and lodging too? It's cool because grad students don't pay very well. But I'm going to talk about the CI funding landscape. It is hard to make CI funding fun. We'll try to get through it. I want stories from you guys. Talk about how this helps. This is not just about funding for you, but also funding that researchers pursue that would need your help. So we'll go both ways. And we start. No, how do we keep going forward? There we go. Hey, and don't forget for the secret agenda. No one took Flat Henry to the restaurant last night. Oh, I'm still hungry. He is so hungry. And Debbie's gonna get a picture right now. Thank you, Debbie. Make sure he has a lot of travel this week and get some good pictures with him. The second one here, is the video? Yes, where's the money? I want to know. Let's find it. The money is everywhere. And never forget. You ever want to find someone who can take you to the money? Who do you go to? Henry, because Henry knows everything. And if he doesn't know anything, he'll figure it out himself.
He'll make something up.
He'll make something up. He has learned his business, like he said, to the wheel lad and later hosen and other sports. I don't know. Something. And we are going to talk about funding agencies. You have first the National Science Foundation, which has a whole bunch of stuff. They're probably the main source of a lot of money for these efforts. So, Exceed, which we talked about yesterday, Open Science Grid, the Campus Cyber Infrastructure Program, which is a big one that a lot of people in this room have got for infrastructure. Both people, which is what Henry talked about the first day, the network engineers, and networking. You have the SICE. Now, this is a very, very acronym-laden talk, and I apologize completely because everyone likes to have acronyms. A lot of them sound like words, and so they're everywhere. And then sometimes they're combined acronyms. So they have the CRI and the CRI, which is the SICE RI or the SICE RII, which is great because they want to crank the acronyms together as they can. And we keep going with the NSF. NSF also has the MRI, which is a big player too in a lot of compute storage cluster equipment. EPSCoR states, which Terry talked about the first day, we talked about the states that have less funding overall with NSF. The cyber training, Dirk, right there, he's the guy. And I believe so. Henry, cyber training, which you applied for this year, back in
it was on Valentine's Day.
Right? So it's cyber training too. And then CDSNE, which you can't really pronounce, computational and data-enabled science engineering. There's also CC. Not to be completely confused with the other CC, there's two, because you can say CC for campus. That was a big problem on the email list. Don't forget campus cyber engineering CC. There's also a CIC that you can also pronounce CC, which is important. I'll talk about that too. Besides that, you have the Department of Energy, which has two programs called Insight and the NERSC is the center, but NERSC has a program to get time on their censorship. The DoD has a.
Dan, sorry, can you move your microphone higher up on your lapel? Higher, all the way up. Keep going. There. Now talk loud.
Testing. Can you hear me in TV interweb out there in the world of?
You just said it's great.
All right, great. The Department of Defense, they have an instrumentation program much like the MRI, but you have to have the Department of Defense money to be a researcher for them to get the instrumentation program. You also have, which is big now, National Institute of Health, because you have all these biologists who think they need to put their biology onto computers and stuff. They have shared instrument grants and high-end instrumentation grants. We got more at USDA. This is something out of Aaron's territory up in North Dakota, U.S. Department of Agriculture. They have more acronyms: Agriculture, Food Research Initiatives, Food, Agriculture, Cyber Informatics, and Tools. So at least they have cyber in the name, which means provide something, find money in. And then the Infuse, Innovations in the Nexus of Food, Energy, and Water Systems, which is a partnership between NSF and USGA, NIFA, we're not so different. Or both ways, NIFA or NIFA. All right, so remember yesterday we have John Towns Exceed, this is the Grand Exceed corporate chart of things, of advisory boards and things. Down below is the campus engagement program. Campus champions, we cannot forget Henry and Dana and then Kelly Gaither. And remember, Henry, what do you do? Follow the money, follow the Henry. Well, there you go, we're getting there. And then Dana is the mother of Dragon. All right, we're getting there. It's Tuesday. Bunch of champions, and all these champions have asked for time on Exceed, because Exceed gives you free money when you need time. These supercomputing centers, and NSF spends all this money on these giant computers, these like 6 centers. And like, what are you gonna do with them? 3 seconds. Remember, your campus champion. What do you get every year? Every January, you get 300,000 hours of free time to give away. If you don't use it, you lose it. You lose it. And that is time, no application process, no anything. You just say, hey, here's San Diego's Common, or tax Stampede 2, or Bridges up in Pittsburgh, whatever you want. They're free, easy, get your research on. They also have visualization resources, and they also have funny things like what is the high-speed tech Maverick? Is it Maverick, or what am I thinking of their DSSD storage system on the back here? It's not Maverick. Wrangler's the name. Wrangler's the name. So they have this, they're partnering with a company that was in Austin that made these DSSDs for very high speed backend flash-based disks that were much faster than flash directly. And they got bought out by, I believe, Dell or someone bought the company, and they had this very high speed system. It showed someone who did a lot of database work that on Stampede 1, after 4 weeks, never finished. But he's a lot of disk I/O, high-speed stuff. And so you have these people that do these weird things sometimes that don't need computer memory, but need disk. And they put onto their regular system that could complete in like 4.5 hours. So this is things that you might not have at your place because you can't afford it to partner with new tech companies that do things or whatever. That's what Exceed's for. If you try something different or something bigger, they're there for you, and it's free. And then don't forget about Open Science Grid. So it's a partnership between Department of Energy and NSF. And through Exceed, you can request OSG hours too. And part of your giant bucket of hours, I don't remember how many you get. Who's a campus champion here? All right, so you guys should know how many hours of OSG can you request on your champion allocation. I don't know it. How many? 200,000. I think it's 200,000. That's a whole bunch. So they're good at single-threaded jobs, less than 2 gigs of memory. They take 1 to 12 hours. And this is a chart from the last year, millions of jobs per month for this August. They have 122 sites across the U. I think it's the U.S. only. A lot of the high energy physics places have these tier 2 sites to distribute high energy jobs. But OSG can also be done on normal jobs. You don't have to be a physicist. You can be whatever you want as long as the job fits in that period. I did the same graph last year. So this was from yesterday through 12 months ago. So there's about 14 million jobs per month. There's always a peak like a year ago. I don't know why, because last year there was a peak again 11 months ago. They did 25-ish million jobs per month last year. So they had 130 sites. And how their number of sites is going up and down. But if you want to join OSG, they have an OSG Connect box that you can put on your campus. And that does all the scheduling of the jobs for you. It does all the hard work. So the jobs can just go into your cluster. Unseen, if anyone else's job come in on your cluster, they keep OSG jobs off. And they're just a backfiller for your jobs. So if you want to help out the community, you can decide to be an OSG site. And then when you're taking jobs from someone, you're also getting that. So it's a fair trade. All right, this is the fun one. This is the one where NSF couldn't figure out how to name their programs. Every year, it changed from network infrastructure engineering to infrastructure innovation engineering to data network innovation. In 2016, it became STAR. What does STAR mean? Round expressions. STAR. What do you do? What STAR mean? Wildcard, anything, right? Matches anything you want. 2017, they skipped. I kept waiting for the announcement to come out. So the last was Jerry right there in 2018. It's still called STAR. And this is where you can have stuff for your network. This is your science DMC, data-driven networking infrastructure. You want to say, I want a high-speed research network that bypasses my enterprise firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, and makes my researcher happier than trying to get around all these bottlenecks. That's number one. Number two, they have a separate allocation of money just for small universities. That way you're not competing with the big Indianas and Tennessees and whoever the R1 institutes are. If you're small, go there. There's an easier, I don't know what the numbers are because they don't publish it much for your win your grant. Percentage of success for the small institution. Anyone has a small institution grant here? Did you guys get one? Are you guys considered small? You guys, what size is your university?
We got,
You got a $500,000, but was under, what you guys, what year did you get your grade? 14. I think that was before they did the small institution separation. So that was everyone competed for the one. It was the CCI. Yes, CCI. Because the name changes every year, you can always remember where you were. You got IE, IIE, and DNI. So smaller is like that is a great question. How much do you guys ever do Twitch? Who's a Twitch watcher here? 1, 2? Okay, tell us what Twitch is.
Like streaming gaming stuff.
Yes, where your kids watch other people play games. So we can. That's why I have Lisa here. If you want to Twitch with me, I don't know if this will work. You want to Twitch up to Magic? Hey, look at that Magic. Not Magic. Let's try to revert. It must be zooming too much. Come on. It's thinking. So I don't know which side the institutions are. Oh no, it came over here.
So it's still seeing the
What?
no,
There you go. So you want to know what does small mean? Find out what small means. If you haven't seen these before, this is a solicitation NSF puts out for what you do to apply for it. It always starts with divisions is under. You guys see that? How do you zoom in that? There you go. Your deadline is always 5 p.m. Your local submitter's time, so whatever time you're in, always 5 p.m. And as Henry said yesterday, he has submitted before 4:59. And when you hit 5 o'clock, if you don't have it submitted, you will lose unless there's something that happened on their end and they agree that they had a network problem or a web portal that worked. If you don't get it in, you're stuck for another year. And usually the deadlines, I always say within the first 2 weeks or last 2 weeks of some month. And then almost every year, the NSF says, just kidding, let's change the date again. This is why the CC star just disappeared the whole year because they never announced the date. They have 90 days before the solicitation comes out to announce it. So the guarantee of 90 days is coming out. You always look at the previous year's date. And if you're waiting 90 days out to write your proposal, you're probably too late. Always be working on it way in advance. Get your partner. We're looking for small institutions. What's the magic? Fine. Very fine. All right, they're on 5 to 10 awards. It's quite a bit. And this area supports smaller institutions. Fundamental challenges. We'll describe smaller. I don't know, Eric. They just say small. Smaller than, I don't know. But there has to be, Henry, do you know if there's a definition for small and
There really isn't. In practice, it looks to me like what it really means is not. I think at least 1 or 2 of the institutions that have gotten small institution grants have 5 figures worth of students, which I don't think there's any reasonable way to say that a 10 or 15 or 20,000 student institution is small. So I think what they actually mean is not PhD granting.
But the magic about the NSF website is they show you everyone who has a grant under the, there you go. what has been funded recently? That was fast. So in the magic world of NSF, we should be able to do a search. With these three codes, which each one we want small. No, they won't let you search for small. And you know if they say advanced search how to do a small, a sub part of a grid search?
Typically, no. What I would usually do if I wanted to be able to sort by something useful is I would download the Excel spreadsheet and then sort that. I'm not necessarily recommending you do that during this.
Dude, we're twitching. This is all twitching. We are. Is that a thing? You say twitching? What do you say when you watch people
If you want to live stream downloading the Excel spreadsheet, you are welcome to do that.
So, we won't, but now you know how.
Yeah.
So you have the search on each page. It'll do the element code for afterwards. And the one thing NSF doesn't do is give out failed award is good. So if you ever submit to NSF, you don't get your proposal funded, it's erased from memory. Supposedly no one has it, no one knows what it is, and no one knows you submitted it before. So you can always take it back if you failed completely, fix everything, because you got to review your comments and send it back in. That is not the same in other divisions. Which divisions will keep your NIH? Who goes NIH here? You know what? Henry?
I'm sorry.
Does NIH keep a history of the awards you submitted? I know NSF leads. Which ones do?
So I honestly don't really know much about the NIH grant website. I'm guessing they provide similar information, although I'll tell you when I've done web searches for that, the information is much less detailed than what the NSF publicly provides.
So remember that NSF has no memory of if you fail. If you win, you're the best. Then you're posted on their website. So these are the big ones. I remember the first year, the percentage of people who won, usually you get like a 10% return on your proposals, your success rate. And the first year this was like 40 or 50. Not many people knew what it was. And then each year it got harder and harder too. The other one, this is for your SciSe research, the people in computer science. So the CC star is infrastructure. I mean, Henry's got this, Suzanne got it, I had one of the CC stars. Aaron, you have one?
Yeah, we just got one.
You just got one too. So that is not people who do research, but people who build infrastructure or support infrastructure at the university. Whereas the CRI, specifically for you have to have a researcher that has a research project that needs this infrastructure to do their research. So these are usually led by your professors or researchers for something they need for computer information. One's enhancements and current ones. You got 4 different types. You can plan it, create it, enhance it, versus state it as current community infrastructure. But it's supposed to be beyond the award institution. Everything in NSF now is you have to have partnerships, collaboration, and outside your local jurisdiction. They're a big believer in sharing and having your impact go elsewhere. This is a new one I just kind of learned about this year. This is it's SciSe RII, not CRI. It's due tomorrow, so you're here, so you're stuck. But it's still for a researcher, and it's if you're a brand new person. So this is the thing where you're at your university, you need to make sure you meet either before they get there or when they get there, the new researchers. Talk to them, help them, and know that you're there to assist on their grants. You can help them with things like this. They had, so on that same website I just looked at, I just did a quick advanced search on this program, search for compute, 127 of the awards that computed, islands and cyber infrastructure, 4 at HPC. I mean, there's opportunity for you to help these new researchers with these, either with their data management plan or hardware you need or software, whatever they need on these grants. So
this is not like a career.
This is, so if you, so there's, NSF has a career award, which is a 5-year award to help new researchers, a pretty prestigious award. This is separate than the career awards. I believe if you have a career award, you can apply for this. There's some crossover of the two. Once you get your PhD, first one, they want to give you some money to try to do research. But this is a good thing to know so you can help research. It has a lot of overlap with what you do. All right, MRI is the big one. So this is the one. This is what is this one at Pedestal? Is that right? Is MRI at Pedestal? So we're talking about the MRI a little bit, Henry.
Yeah, I got a whole talk about that. So the Major Research Instrumentation Program is a fantastic way to get, call it one-time funding for equipment, including for cyber infrastructure. That you submit are heavy on the research content, a description of what research is going to use the equipment, but also include a description of what the equipment is and how you know it's going to be used and how to be managed and so on and so forth. All the standard things that people would want to know. We've got slide decks that go into much more detail about that. It's a great way to kickstart physical cyber infrastructure at your institution. It's less clear that it's a great way to have ongoing. Some institutions have made a success of that. Many do it once or once in a great while. I would also say, based on my own experience, the more your system looks like other people's systems, the easier it will be to get it funded. The more you're doing something unusual or unique, the lower the probability that they will understand it. What I'm about to say is a lie, but it's very truthful. The first order of the MRI program was designed to fund large microscopes. And the more what you do looks like a large microscope, the higher the probability that you will be funded. So they've gotten used to funding, for example, clusters. And so it's straightforward to write, if you write a good cluster proposal, it's straightforward to get that funded, although not necessarily over and over. Did that capture it well enough?
Yeah, the other thing you have to learn or know about the MRI, there's a limited number of submissions per university. They have 3 at each institution, which means you can have 2 for acquisition of equipment and 1 for development of some sort of equipment or infrastructure. So usually a university has an internal competition that everyone in there competes for. Yeah, like I said, microscope or X-ray crystallography or some sort of laboratory system that does these. Those a lot of times are favored over like clusters or sources. So it is sometimes it can take you years to even get into the system. Submit 1 to and stuff. So I submitted 1 4 years ago. Very happy, very good review, got it back in that slot. And it was like, yeah, we would have funded you, but we're very close because the other trick with MRI and all programs is Kansas is the export state. So they sometimes you can find other bits of money from other NSF programs that will kick over to your other funding. So you have a higher chance of getting funded. So we were close, and then the next year we submitted that email saying, hey, we're really close, this is great, we're gonna do it again. They said, no, we're these other 2. The next year, like, all right, ready this year, let's go. No, it could be the other 2. Even though you have a high success or high chance of getting funded again, it's hard for someone to get past your internal politics. Like earlier. And so MRI they still list the 14, 15 award information, so how many of each student get awards, how many for 16, 17 areas. I assume at some point is that we'll update their website. Usually do in January, 800 proposals reviewed, success rate of 25% and 20% in 15. Core network development, 75% of our acquisition, 2 to 3. And then 12 to 14% request a bunch of less than $1 million. So it's another thing. There are different buckets of money that they put you into. So if you request less than $1 million, there's a higher chance of you getting funding because there's more money to go around. If you have over $1 million mark, it's a different competition level. So your percentage of success depends on what bucket of money you put your proposal to. Some people go like I think Dana's last cluster was funded at $999,998. This would be right under the $1 million mark.
It was slightly lower.
990.
Yeah,
Let me
do like 970,000. If you do like 99999, yeah, they might decide to push you over.
Over the top. So you get it close, not too. But there's some places like I think you said here, if you hit a mark, you also get some sort of
Well,
feedback
so one of the things to note is they completely changed one of the key rules this year. So up until this year, it was 3 proposals per institution, only 2 of which could be acquisition. One could be development of a new type of instrument. This year, they completely changed that rule. Now it's 2 proposals of under $1 million and 1 proposal of over $1 million. So we had actually been planning to submit at $1,001,001 because of the cost share issue that PhD granting institutions are required to meet. How many of you are at PhD granting institutions? Okay. The NSF has a somewhat weird definition of that, where they have to be STEM PhDs, and they look at, I can't remember if it's the last 2 years, or the last 4 years, and it's like the average, an average of 20 per year over that. I don't know, some weird thing for their definition of PhD rank. Anyway, if you're a PhD rank institution, you have to have 30% cost share, and that's calculated as the NSF piece is 70%. So you have to have 3/7 as much money as the NSF puts in. Is that complicated enough? I can make it uglier, but let's leave it there. And that can be very difficult for some institutions to come up with that money. If you ask for $1 million, 3/7 of $1 million is, wait, I can do this. 485,000. I think that's right. So that's a lot of money. Sorry, 420 some thousand. That's a lot of money. If your institution can't come up with it, they can't do, or the people writing the proposal can't come up with it, they can't do the $1 million proposal at all. So it turns out now it can be easier to get an MRI proposal slot if you have someone who can cover cost share at that level.
This coming year.
That started in 2018, so that certainly is, well, they could change the rule back and they won't tell us until 90 days before, but there's no indications so far, at least, they're planning to change the rule back. So it probably will apply to the 2019 competition. Proposals are typically due in January or early February.
Yeah, that's also a big deal at your institution, because if you hit over the $1 million mark, they have to come up with the money and have to earmark it for the next budget year, which might not get announced until April.
Well, and the thing is, so since the upper limit on the duration of an MRI grant you can request is 3 years, 36 months, and your cost share can include labor, then if you can make a compelling case for, what would this be, $140,000 worth of labor per year, and that's including fringe and indirect. If you can make it, so roughly speaking, and indirect, yes. Foregone indirect on cost share funding counts as cost share funding.
How do you calculate it?
Okay, it's slightly weird. Per year, for example, the fringe rate we use on proposals is 40.8%. The internal is 33. The difference is it doesn't include the teacher retirement system. So we can charge a grant for the retirement. We can't charge the benefits in an internal budget for the retirement because that comes out of a different internal pot. Don't ask, it's good. But then add those two things together, and you can put the regular cost share rate on top of adding those two things together and count, sorry, not cost share, indirect cost rate, and count that foregone indirect cost on the cost share as part of the cost share. So if you pay someone $1 as part of the cost share, then they get 33 cents for benefits, so that's $1.33, and then 55% of $1.33, so that's, help me do this in my head, 70 cents, so the whole thing is $2. You pay them $1, you can count $2 as cost share.
So
if you can get if you can consume $70,000 worth of salary per year for 3 years, there's your cost share.
What was the 55%?
Oh, that's OU's indirect cost rate. Everybody's institution will have a different rate, but most research-intensive institutions are in the neighborhood of 50%.
So with the MRIs, you can't pay someone to do research using instruments, you pay someone to support the instrument.
And you can count the labor of them deploying and maintaining the instrument has cost share.
So you listen to senior personnel on the grant and say, we will cover this. And if you pay them 70K, you like I said, bank 200,000 times 3 years as your cost share.
So the way it works at UND, we don't pay our salary, right? We hire, we buy like 2,000 plus hours of system admin time from the university.
So you would count that then. But again, if you can come up with $70,000 a year worth of salary equivalent that you spent maintaining the instrument, you do that for 3 years, that's your $420,000. So you may have noticed that the labor cost of maintaining a large-scale cluster at a research-intensive university is not necessarily less than 1 FTE. So you're saying you buy 2,000 hours a year. That's 1 FTE. If that person makes $70,000 a year, you're done with cost share. Assuming your fringe and indirect rates are similar to ours.
I mean, we pay $70 an hour, so that comes out to.
So that's 70 is, and that includes fringe, correct?
Yeah.
But not indirect,
Not even.
which you get to count. So that's, so you pay 70, I thought you said $70 an hour?
Yeah.
So 140,000 a year plus indirect. The 140 already covers your, if you triple that, that's your 420, it's actually 428. Never mind. $428,000 for $1 million worth of equipment, $1,001 worth of equipment. These numbers are approximate, but so you would have no difficulty in your cost share.
And you also get a letter from the university saying you'll continue to support this person.
Beyond the 3 years, yeah, absolutely. And that's your opportunity. This is a really good point, and this goes back to strategic thinking yesterday, right? So help us get this grant, which is a lot of money. Help us get the grant in order that we, and your hidden evil scheme is, and in your letter of commitment, say that you will commit to this position beyond the lifetime of the grant, because the life of the instrument will be longer than 3 years, right? And once they get in the habit of paying for that service, when they've done that for 4 or 5 years, it will seem normal to them. But getting them in the habit is difficult. So dangling $1 million in front of them. Now, did we talk about the downside of $1 million?
Further review.
Right. So the problem with going to $1,001 as opposed to $999,999 is you have to. It cuts your probability of success by roughly a factor of 3. So probability of success at $999,999 is something like 15% these days. At $1,001,000, it's probably closer to 5%. And the reason for that is the second round of reviews is not a regular review panel of outside reviewers like the first round. The second round of reviews is representatives from the NSF's internal directorates. And of course, each one of them has a vested interest in saying no.
If you have the match to get you over the $1 million, you might be the only
Everybody
one.
else does too.
But no, but you might be the only one on your campus.
At your institution, absolutely.
So you get past.
Right. So if you can make a compelling argument to your institution, hey, we would have to pay for the person anyway, as long as we're paying $70K or whatever per year for the labor, we're golden on cost share. You don't have to shell out any extra cash for that. I think that argument resonates pretty well, and it's much easier for them to do what you're talking about, where they're repurposing time from IT staff, right? Yeah, that's a reprioritization, not an additional cost.
Just so we're clear, that extra $400,000 of personnel is in your budget, but it doesn't count towards your $1 million number.
Correct.
You still ask for $1 million.
The $1 million and $1 has to be on the NSF side.
Yep. So whatever they pay for has to be under $1 million, but your $400,000 goes on top of that, so your total budget is going to be $1.4 million.
So roughly speaking, if you can get the under, but if you're stuck with the over $1 million slot, it's still worth a shot.
And if you're in an EPSCoR state, that second review panel, EPSCoR can kick in some money if they have it to help out your profitability.
So that's usually not taken into account in the reviewing. It's usually taken into account afterwards in the budgeting. The program officer will go to the NSF EPSCoR people and say, would you like to co-fund this project?
That was during our review. Had that talk EPSCoR during our.
Oh, did they do it in review?
So F-score funds can be used for part of the cost share.
So we're conflating two completely different kinds of NSFF score money. You're thinking of the NSFF for research infrastructure improvement, like the track one $20 million grant. No, you totally can't use that as cost share, because the cost share rule is it has to be entirely non-federal funds. What I'm talking about is NSFF for co-funding, which is a completely different pot of money, where the NSFF organization, if a program officer comes to them and says, this is a proposal that's led by an institution in an export state, we'd like you to go halvesies, or we'll do $2 and you do $1, whatever. They negotiate some dollar figure. Can you kick in some money? And depending on whether EPSCoR decides they value that project and how close it is to the end of the fiscal year, either they have to push money out the door, or they're more likely they've already committed it all. May or may not get co-funded.
So that's just NSF ask, not a.
Yeah, and it is generally considered a terrible idea to mention any of that in the proposal. You pretend that your proposal doesn't need the boost. It may need the boost, but in your proposal, you act as if that doesn't exist.
It doesn't hurt to talk to your EPSCoR office where you submit your proposal to see some of their major jurisdictional issues. You can include any of those people into your projects. So a lot of people already have NSF money, and it always looks good on your PI list when people have NSF money.
Your statistics up on the slide for awards greater than $1 million are around 16%. But Henry, did I hear you say that's realistically around 5%?
No, not percent of awards awarded or funds awarded, percent of such awards that are successful.
Yeah, so these are, if you have a budget more than $1 million, the success rate is 2016 versus 12, 5, 14, the budget. So they're saying 12 to 40% had budgets over $1 million, so a small percentage of the total proposals. And of that 20, 16% successful. These are current numbers I have for the MRI. They have nothing newer, but I believe if you get MRI, they'll give you more detailed numbers every year too. Right. So as public, you don't have access, but if you win the award, they give you more information. All right, what's next? Oh, this is one of my favorites. This is Henry and Washington for the money. Oh, wait for it, and there. Oh, no. Right there. Oh, it covers it. So once again, Henry, money. Don't forget. So these are the EPSCoR jurisdictions. The ones that have lines in them are no longer receiving EPSCoR status. Iowa, Tennessee, Utah. So you have to have, there's a whole table I'd show you that's really boring. Less than 75% of the total budget of NSF awarded to your state means you're I would say poor state, but less funded than other states. So you need a little boost. So that is the EPSCoR jurisdictions. And it's based on the running 3-year total of how much money you get from NSF. So some states can graduate at the cost. You graduate from the EPSCoR state to a big state. Experimental program to stimulate competitive research. So this is what you're talking about, the track 1 program. So it's called RII. For some reason I always say it's R2. It's RII, RI squared, track 1. So RII track 1. So there are, it just passed July 3rd, July 3rd is deadline. Physical, human, and cyber improvements. There is a steering committee in each jurisdiction that says this is the best thing for us. So like in the Midwest, it's more ag focused and water, the InView program, which we'll talk about later. Inside InView, there's so many acronyms. But it's food, energy, and water can't be things.
Yeah, but I mean, this year, North Dakota didn't go for anything related.
Roads. Was actually
Wasn't really.
that's your InView program was going to be.
Oh, it is. It's just that's not what the topic of our track.
What is your track 2?
I don't think we'd be comfortable with that.
It's still.
But it's just not.
Process. Yeah.
Huh? Oh, now that you asked, oh yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, it's supposed to make you more competitive, help you out because you are a training station. Yeah.
On.
Yes.
Okay, so can we hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dan, you have to stand right here and you have to bias in this direction. And then we'll fix this during the break. I'm sorry? On the screen?
You're without the see right now.
Oh, right, because he's got to pull the slides back up. Can you see that?
No.
Nothing at all?
We broke everything.
Okay, hang on. I have a solution. It's not an ideal solution, but we're going to make the best of it.
Okay, now do we have audio?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to turn the gain all the way up, and we're filled with hope, and you have to stand right here, and you can't go anywhere.
I'm a walker.
Yeah, I understand. I'm the same, but this is the best we can do. We're going to have to make the best of it. Okay, go loud.
Woohoo. What do you see now, Dirk? Do you still see? You good? All right. So where were we? Oh, I can't move. Oh my goodness. App Store. All right. So you have to go through jurisdiction is not as for you, but a lot of times they will use what you have for your cyber infrastructure stuff. So that was track 2. So track 3 is, I just want to mention it because it was a pilot program, and maybe they'll bring it back, maybe they won't. 5 years ago, they had a track 3 that was for underrepresented minorities, women, persons with disabilities, and those in underserved rural regions of the country. It has not come back yet, but maybe. There's also a track 4, which is for, this is different than a lot of NSF stuff, non-tenured investigators to further develop their individual research potential to go to visit nation's premier private, governmental, and academic research centers. So that was pretty interesting. So once again, these are those things you should know about in case you talk to researchers and say, hey, you want to go work with some national center or private center? These are things.
Non-tenure, is that pre-tenure? Or staff? Or instructor?
Non-tenured, I think it's more open than you think. It could be research scientists, which is non-tenured. I don't think it's probably tailored towards people on tenured track. So I would bet more research scientists. Like you, Aaron. You can apply for this. Yeah. Dirk, what do you want to say about cyber training?
The purpose of the NSF's call was to try to build a workforce, our workforce, people in this room. And so they're looking for ideas to do workforce development. They target 3 areas, which is, like grad students or students heading into the workforce, current people in the workforce, and there's a third one. I can't read. But what's nice about it, you do need an original idea like we talked about yesterday. So it's kind of tricky to come up with a unique idea that someone hasn't thought of before and have it integrate well with existing programs. And so I think that's the real challenge with this one. Talk to your program officer, because the program officer provided really useful feedback when we were developing our ideas.
It's another good point. So every the website we went to for NSF and a lot of the programs have a listing of the officers that support that program. Call them up, send them an email. They're very helpful and will tell you about the program and anything you want to know about. And they're also good on the backside too. You can call them after if you get your reviews back, and they'll go what you did well, what you can improve on next time. CDSE, the Computational and Data Enabled Science and Engineering. So this one is under each of the divisions listed there. There's a whole bunch. So they have an overarching CS&E that goes into each of the astronomical sciences, math, chemistry, engineering. And the goal is to, major scientific and engineering breakthroughs. I mean, they want to be on the cutting edge, but there are different submission deadlines for each division, and they have a whole different solicitation for each one too. But just things that you should be on your radar in case you want to talk to researchers and say, hey, are you submitting this? Let me help you if you need resources or data management plans or whatever else, or even personnel. These are things you can be part of. And we're still in NSF, so this is the second CC, not the CC star, but CICI, Cybersecurity Innovation for Cyber Infrastructure. One of the key things is always look for things that have cyber infrastructure in their name. It means you can usually have some sort of assistance to either the researchers or help them get stuff. So security solutions that benefit everything, end-to-end security, scientific workflow. So to secure science infrastructure, collaborate, spot center, and research data protection. Pretty good overarching goals. All right, let's move on to the DOE, Department of Energy. Their insight, I'm just walking again and see if I can't walk.
You also have to get your head turned.
That I can't read. I guess I can read this way. The DOE Insight Program, there are, as they call them, LCF, more acronyms, Leadership Computing Facilities, like at Argonne and Oak Ridge. So they have their 200 petaflop Summit, the Titan, Mirror, Theta, and they gave away 6 billion core hours last year. I haven't done the math of how many Exceed gives out, but I don't think it's 6 billion. Maybe it is. They have giant machines with lots of hours, and that's only half the time they give away the Insight program. So they only had 55 projects, about a third acceptance rate, which isn't bad. So you don't get money, but you get time on giant machines up to 3 years. And like a lot of places, there's director's discretionary spending, so they can give you, not spending, but core hours to go test a project if you don't need to go to one of these giant machines. The DOE also works with NERSC, the National Research Science Center. What's NERSC stand for? Who can Google faster than me? I'm saying energy. National Energy.
National Energy Research Scientific.
Scientific Computing. I was close. Science Council, Scientific Computing. They also have compute there, and they will give away an allocation on their resources. And if you're not directly funded by a DOE project, you still get time on it if you're relevant to its mission. So you don't have to have a DOE grant to get time on the NERSC systems. This is totally separate. Both these are separate than the Exceed. Exceed has nothing with DOE. So if you want to apply for these, they are a different thing. I didn't put in Blue Waters either. Blue Waters at NCSA, National Center for Scientific Applications at the University of Illinois, has a machine. And then the Defense Department. Department of Defense has their MRI-ish program. It's the DURIP, Defense University Research Interpretation Program. You do have to have, as I walk, you do have to have defense money or researchers who have defense money. So we got one of these at the University of Kansas 3 years ago, and we had people from computer science, mathematics, chemistry, and 2 computer scientists, and then there was one more. The cool thing about this one, which is totally different than every other organization, is each office has can accept a submission of the grant, but you don't have to change anything except the name of the division you're submitting to. So we submit the exact same grant to the Army office and the Air Force office, so ARO and OSR, exact same grant. All you do is change who you're giving it to, and so depending on what you take it, but you don't have to change anything in the grant. A lot of places you can't have, like NSF, you can't submit the same grant twice with the same information. They frown upon that, or will even kick it back to you.
If they want to talk amongst themselves, you still have to submit to all 3.
Yes,
separate.
you had to submit to all 3 separately, but it's exact, nothing changed except who you're submitting to on the front page. And so success, but only if you overlap with some of their research areas, or if the people under your PI list have grants from those different areas. So if you have an overlap of the 2, you might take a couple.
So like if you have one researcher who does unmanned systems,
Air Force, yep.
Air Force,
Yep.
Army, or Navy,
Yeah.
then you can submit to all 3.
Yes, and then you just,
And they'll argue amongst themselves.
and then in your proposal, just make sure you went over water, over a boat somewhere, and it's fine. Put it Navy, and then over land. Yes. So I mean, good success rate, quarter, 26%, 50 million bucks. Yeah, 50,000, 1.5 million. I think ours was $500,000. It was 250,000 for compute, so we got straight GPU and PHY compute to test a lot of their code on that they use for their defense research, and then a visualization system. We had a miniature cave instance that we built so they could do some 3D modeling and things inside the visualization suite. It's a 1-year award. It got you infrastructure, and it was cool because you could put into more places without changing anything. NIH is the one where no one here has any NIH grants or know of people. I guess you know of people who have NIH grants. The 2 big ones, I don't know who has these, but they have used these for compute infrastructure. Like the MRI used to be just for instruments. They have 2, the Shared Instrumentation Grant Program and the High-End Instrumentation Grant Program, which is just different dollar amounts, 50 grand to 600 grand versus 600 to 2 million. The number of awards there too for 15, 16, which I have on the website. And they hit a number of states, 31, 25 states, with 13. So it's a good number, and they will do some things that are cyber infrastructure, but once again, they're much more medical focused instrumentation, things that will do NIH specific grants. But you have to, your PI doesn't have to be an NIH researcher, but you have to identify any proposal at least 3 PIs with active NIH awards. So they don't have to be on the grant. It doesn't help. It's probably better. But if you write the grant or someone does, you don't have to have an active NIH award, but you have to support NIH research like most of these different funding agencies. And then you have the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, which really likes acronyms, the USDA NIFA FACT, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And the FACT is the Food and Agriculture Cyber Informatics and Tools. Once again, keyword, cyber informatics, FACT. So core big data analytics, keep your buzzwords, big data, and tool development, then apply these concepts to science domains. Plant health production, plant product program area priorities. So these were due, letter of intent, July 25th, deadline October 31st. And then NSF partnered with USDA and NIFA or NIFA, whatever Aaron wants to say. I like to say NIFA or NIFA.
I say NIFA, but
NIFA.
I've been corrected. Then been corrected after I called it NIFA too.
USDA NIFA equals infuse. I don't know how those letters are arranged, but if you can figure it out, infuse innovations at the nexus of food, energy, and water. For solicitation, they talk about cyber components, which is cool. So you're sensing your networks, your visualization, computation to help decision making assessment. So they want to, it's USDA, food, energy, water all come together, and cyber enabled interfaces. And best part too, also grow the workforce. So if these fit in, remember, make sure your researchers know about them. There's opportunities if you have any ag or AV. Minnesota hosted a workshop last November, which October for ag. There's a whole 2-day workshop for it.
Yeah, agroinformatics.
Agroinformatics.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a huge push, and there's a lot of technology and enhancement going into that, and they need a lot of modeling and simulation that can happen on supercomputers and storage, and all this data's got to go somewhere. What's next? Yeah, so they have 3 tracks for modeling and solutions. So that's not bad. 2.5 mil for 3 to 5 years, and track 3 is research coordination networks. I don't know what that means, but you get $750,000 to have a research coordination network. And then they also have telemedicine. If you're in a place that has 20,000, how big your town? Who has 20,000 people or less in your town or your area that you work with? We got one in the back. Where are you from?
Midway, Mass.
Midway, Mass.
Midway, Mass.
So if you have less than 20,000 population, they'll give you $55,000 to work to put more infrastructure in for not just audiovisual, but networking and compute support for your small institutions. If you have researchers who either do this or need to do, or hospitals you work with, if you have a medical center. All right, states. These are the states I know about. I asked last year for everyone to give me a list. I got 5 back. So Nebraska has a research initiative, so they'll give out money for things. I think they fund a couple of their clusters through the NRI. North Dakota, this is from Aaron. You guys have a research funding center at your government who gives, this is how you funded your cluster?
So it's for public-private partnerships. It's not for research projects that have a collaborative between universities and some company.
A private partner, yeah.
So one of the things that was successful in the last 2 years was there was a research project with FedEx that was funded. Ended up being fairly successful and ended up getting spawned off into a startup company.
Nice. I assume South Dakota, if I stole your idea, is a very similar. Well, there's a Board of Regents Research and Development Innovation Grant Program. So these are the Board of Regents is for the universities. New York State Energy Research Development Authority has a grant funding program. I know there was a big thing with University of Buffalo and Intel, and they did a energy efficient study of their old supercomputer and figured out how much energy it was using, monitoring it, and replaced it, and showed how much money they were saving with grant funding from the state energy diversion. They have an active website with a nice green bar and red bar, what they used to use, what they use now, to show you that sometimes it's better to replace equipment and you can double, triple your computational power and still save money on energy. So that was a good case study. West Virginia has something, and then like a private one is Silicon Mechanics has a research grant every year where you can apply to and get a small cluster from them. They are a hardware, I guess they don't make their own hardware, but their cluster. Has anyone got a Silicon Mechanics grant in this room yet? No. Cluster vendor. I guess a vendor is probably the best way to consider them. So they'll do that as long as you have research support and install it in your place. And then we're in 2018. You can't forget cloud. All the clouds have all the credits for everything you want to do in research. Because once they get you in, you'll never leave. Just like containers. Get in, get stuck forever. You did not look up. Hey, Henry, how are you doing?
And the hubs, the Midwest, not only the Midwest Big Data Hub, but the 4 regional big data hubs have partnerships with, pretty sure with Microsoft and maybe Google. Could be wrong on the other partner, but there's at least one other cloud partner which you can apply for credits for their platforms that are much larger than you can apply for through the grants standard.
So Midwest Big Data Hub, if you haven't heard of it, or the Big Data Hub program, NSF gave some seed money 4 years ago,
3 years ago.
to create these hubs of innovation around the nation. And so there's a Northeast, Midwest, South, and West, 4?
West Hub, yeah.
Yeah, so there's 4 hubs, and they each have their spokes. Are they still called spokes in your hub?
The terminology's changed, but there's spoke projects which also get funded by NSF.
Yeah, so if you can align some of your research with the spokes or the new name for whatever comes out of a hub into an axle. It has to be a spoke, right? That's what it'd be.
Yeah, it would be a spoke of some kind. Right? I think now we're calling the Midwest Hub is calling them areas of.
So they will also, if you can't get it directly from your cloud provider, go through Midwest Big Data Hub. Also, people like the DoD, we had a meeting with a researcher. So if you guys heard of FedRAMP, who's heard of the term FedRAMP? That's 2 of you. So FedRAMP certification is a process that you go through to verify your security, authorization for access, and all these things to say that you can support federal research and guarantee, or not guarantee, but have the safeguards in place that your information won't get lost. So I know Amazon is FedRAMP certified. I think Azure is too. Google, I assume so too, because they have lots of money and people throw at it. And what that means is you get a DoD grant or some of these grants, and they say you have to use a FedRAMP certified place, or if your local university has a secure facility, you must use that. But they'll give you credits through your proposal just to use at these places. You can ask for credits to go through these things because you have to be, through your security office, through your lawyers, verified when you do this research and sign all the paperwork that says this will not get out, everyone's secure, my grad students will put this on a USB drive, and all the security goes with it. But that's a big thing too. They all got FedRAMP certified to say this is easy, because it used to be every time you apply for these grants, you got to go through a process to verify where your research is going. And this just said, blanket statement, we can verify it, it's good, we're done, we're secure. And then we have one more that Aaron told me about earlier. There are societies that you can apply to that also can take small grants.
Yeah, I mean, there's private foundations. So recently I submitted a funding proposal for about $100,000 to Society of Actuaries. So I look around, you never know what you might find.
So there are opportunities everywhere, as long as you are talking to your researchers and looking out and understanding what they need and what the research area is. There's possibilities everywhere. I've never heard, I didn't know there was a Society of Actuarial Science that gave out grants. So that's pretty cool and a pretty large number too. And the big deal is any division you're in now, I think we have a panelist this week, is they all need help doing this, whether, I mean, if it can't fit on your laptop anymore, you have to go somewhere else. If your data can't be, put on a USB drive or your disk, you have to have a way to help them do the research. So that's all I got. You guys have any questions? And we're 1 minute early. I was going to give you 15 minutes back from yesterday because I didn't know what time we did, but I lost. Hungry? Want some lunch? I believe there's lunch. All right, Henry? Yes.
Let me check if there's anything coming in.
Oh, in the interwebs.
Yeah, hang on. No questions coming from Zoom. Is there anybody out in Zoom with questions?
So Dirk, was I so good no one had questions, or did everyone just phase out? From your educational cyber training learning
It
master.
doesn't matter, it's 1 minute before lunch.
I'm keeping you from lunch. Thank you and good night.